Narcissist, Ensnared. Episode 15. "Thanks for picking me up. This is a real help," smiled Ashleigh as she got into Wynn's car. He had pulled up outside Novo Bank and waited for her to appear. He saw a couple of his former colleagues walk past, but didn't know if they had recognized him. Wynn had the window down, allowing the cold mid-January air to blow into his car. "Down to the Buena Casa?" he asked. "Yes, please," she replied, and patted him on the thigh. Wynn started the engine and pulled away from the premises of Novo Bank. The last fortnight had seen their relationship continue to grow. With Sarah still on holiday and only recently returned 2 days ago, Ashleigh had remained reliant on her parents for help. This meant that she would still come and see Wynn at his house after work, but only for a limited time. They met often for lunch and would spend a Sunday afternoon together, that being the only time that Peter would spend with his children. They would talk at length in the evening, often until late, and on one occasion Ashleigh had fallen asleep whilst on the phone to Wynn. He had been talking, and then he heard her light snores coming down the phone. He found it rather endearing, and rather than end the call, he had gone to bed and placed his phone next to his own head and slipped off to sleep. He was woken 3 hours later by Ashleigh speaking into the phone, asking who was there when she had woken up. She had loved the fact that he had kept the call going, saying it just added to the connection between them. Her sudden departure from Wynn's house on that Monday evening was never mentioned. Instead, she had texted him later with what amounted to some kind of apology, before she then bombarded him with texts about how much she appreciated what he was doing for her, and that she had never been so well looked after as she had by him. The avalanche of compliments which had followed had pushed aside any concerns that Wynn had. He was just pleased to know that she remained totally in love with him, thus matching how he felt. It was now mid-afternoon, and Wynn was dropping Ashleigh off at the Buena Casa Hotel just along from Euro Bank to save her messing about with parking and taxis. They were going to go for a drink after her meeting. This pleased Wynn, and they would be drinking in a bar frequented by many of his colleagues, and this included some mutual friends. He would be seen with her. This is something that he wanted to achieve, to finally be able to show the world that they were together, rather than hiding away. "I hope he behaves himself," commented Ashleigh, as Wynn drove through the streets. "Who?" "Malcolm. You know, he's the one who fancies me." "Oh, you're meeting him, are you?" Ashleigh nodded. Malcolm Turner was about 10 years older than Ashleigh, married, and by all accounts, according to Ashleigh, obsessed with her. She said that every time they met, he tried to kiss her. "Shouldn't you have the meeting at the office?" suggested Wynn. "No, I'm closer to you here." "That's good, but I mean he might have had a drink and be liable to try something." "Oh, I can handle Malcolm. I'm used to his overtures. It's flattering, nothing else." "If you say so." Wynn dropped Ashleigh off, and she disappeared into the interior of the hotel. He parked his car in the bank's car park behind the hotel and returned to his office for just over an hour. Just after 5 p.m, he headed to the bar and ordered 2 glasses of red wine, and sat down at a table near the main entrance to the bar. A little later Ashleigh entered. He watched as she walked in, elegant and beautiful as ever. He really admired how well she dressed and how she carried herself. She looked around and saw him, and gave a little wave. "Hi," she said, kissing him and sitting beside him. He pushed the glass of wine towards her. Thank you," she said, and took a mouthful of the wine. "How did the meeting go?" "Oh, it was fine. He tried to kiss me, of course." "Did he?" "Oh, yes," as I stood up. He pulled me towards him and tried to embrace me. "Why does he think he can get away with it? You should complain about him, you know." "Why? Virtually all of my clients are businesses run by men in their 50s. I have to make them think they have a chance of fucking me, and that way I get their work." "Ashleigh, that is a ridiculous stance to adopt," remarked Wynn. "No, it's not. It's true. I don't mind. I get lots of work that way." "It's also a way to get a reputation," cautioned Wynn. "Why? Who's been saying things about me? Helen Major again?" Nobody has been saying anything. I'm just warning you, that's all. I'm trying to look out for you." "I see." "So, how did you deal with Mr. Turner, then?" "Oh, I just turned my head and let him peck at me on the cheek and made light of his behaviour. Actually, I had hoped that you would have walked in at that moment." "Why?" "So he could have seen that I was with you. You would intimidate him. He's only a small man." "Maybe, but why on earth would I be walking into one of your meetings?" "Oh, I just thought you might. He might try something on, and I hoped you'd come and collect me at the end of the meeting, to warn him off." Wynne looked at Ashleigh with a puzzled expression. She sipped at her wine, and then she realised that he wasn't answering her, so she turned. "What is it?" "That doesn't make any sense," he admitted. "No? I just thought it'd be a good thing to do." Before Wynne could speak, his phone rang. It was Stephen. "Hello, mate," said Wynne. "Hello, pal. What are you up to? I'm with Blackie and fancy to gargle." "Who is it?" asked Ashleigh. "It's Stephen," explained Wynne. Ashleigh motioned for him to hand her the phone, and Wynne did so. "Hello, Stephen," she said into the phone. "Do you know who this is?" she continued. She waited and laughed. "It's the future wife of one of your friends," she added. She paused as Stephen spoke. "Yes, we're in the Waterside Bar. Come and join us." She ended the call, and a few moments later Stephen and Blackmore entered the bar. Stephen, being privy to the affair, at least through Wynne, walked in with his trademark grin. Blackmore, by contrast, looked like he had been tasered. He walked over and shook Wynne's hand and kissed Ashleigh on the cheek. Stephen went to the bar and ordered another round of drinks. "What's all this, then?" asked Blackmore, as he sat at the table. "I'm having drinks with my boyfriend," said Ashleigh proudly. Wynne reached under the table and squeezed her thigh, delighted by her comment. "I'd no idea. You didn't say anything," he remarked in an accusing fashion towards Wynne. Pissed off that you didn't know something for once, are we?" commented Wynne. "Well, not so much that, but I'd no idea about this. How long has this all been going on for, then?" asked Blackmore. "A few months," said Ashleigh, before Wynne could say anything. "Well, you've certainly surprised me," admitted Blackmore, as Stephen returned with drinks for them all. The four of them, all former Novo Bank employees, with Ashleigh being the only one remaining there, sat and chatted. Wynne was feeling very pleased. Not only had Ashleigh decided to tell both Stephen and Blackmore about their relationship, she was also content to sit with him in a prominent place in a bar where people would know them both. This was a major development. Furthermore, Blackmore was a notorious gossip, and they knew that as soon as the drinks were finished, then he would be sending messages to various people that they were in a relationship. A full-page advertisement in the Times newspaper would not have been as effective in announcing that they were together. Blackmore rose to secure another round. "If you drive, you can stay at the house tonight," offered Ashleigh. Wynne guessed that she had been drinking in her meeting with Turner, and she was slurring slightly. Her offer was a no-brainer. He wanted to stay over with her, and there was no way he could let her drive in her current condition. "Sure, it's a deal. Blackie, I'll just have a Diet Coke, please, seeing as I'll be driving." Blackmore nodded and went to purchase more drinks. About an hour and a half later, all four of them left the bar. Stephen had offered to give them a lift across to the Novo Bank car park to pick up Ashleigh's car. Blackmore said goodbye and got in a taxi at the nearby rank. Ashleigh turned and grabbed Wynne, kissing him passionately. He was taken aback by this sudden display of affection. All the more so when it took place in the street in an area frequented by bankers. "Come on, you two lovebirds, hurry up," laughed Stephen. "I love you so much. This is wonderful," said Ashleigh, as she grabbed Wynne by the hand and pulled him along to the car park. 10 minutes later, and Stephen had dropped them next to the Novo Bank car park before driving off with a wave. It was always windy along this road, which seemed to funnel the wind from the river and cause it to howl along the road. The multi-storey car park was behind them, and across the road was the ramp, which led up to a short tunnel. This led underneath a hotel, and opposite, across a square, was the bank. Wynne moved towards the door of the car park, but Ashleigh didn't follow him. "I've left my car keys on my desk," she said. "Oh, do you want me to go and get them?" offered Wynne. "No, I think I'd better do it, but you can come in." "I'll just wait in the lobby by the lifts on your floor. I don't think they'll like it if I walk back into where I used to work." "Sure." They crossed the road and headed up the ramp, the wind still blowing around them. "I haven't missed this wind," remarked Wynne as he buttoned his suit jacket up. They arrived on the 8th floor of the bank. Ashleigh had been kissing him all the way up in the lift. The lift doors opened and they spilled out as she continued to kiss him. He prized her off him and saw that they were alone. 2 double doors, both activated by swipe cards, were at the end of a short corridor which ran outside the 3 lifts. "I'll just be 2 minutes," said Ashleigh. "They're on my desk." Wynne peered through the glass set in one of the double doors. "There's still quite a few people around," he remarked, as he could see half a dozen people milling about the open-plan area. "No doubt a welcoming committee for me," said Ashleigh, as she swiped her card. "Here, hold my bag, please," she asked, and handed her expensive handbag to him. "I won't be long," she said, and slipped through the open doorway. 20 minutes later, and Wynne was stood in the corridor wondering what on earth she was doing. He had paced backwards and forwards and occasionally glanced through the glass in the door, but he couldn't see her. Her desk was around on the other side of the floor, out of view. He recognized 1 or 2 former colleagues who were sat some distance away, and they didn't appear to have seen him. Growing irritated at the delay, he took out his phone and called her iPhone. The ringtone sounded near him, and he realized that it was in her bag. Calling her BlackBerry produced the same result. "For fuck's sake," cursed Wynne. He wanted to reach her home and spend time together. It was already some time after 8, and he wondered what Sarah would say when they eventually turned up. No doubt she would not be best pleased after working in excess of 12 hours for Ashleigh. Wynne was beginning to notice that Ashleigh had little regard for anyone else's time, and she always seemed to be caught up in her own affairs. He looked back through the doors and saw Ashleigh talking to 2 of her colleagues. She was jabbing her finger at one, David Sullivan, and had an aggressive look on her face. Were they having a go at her, given her impending departure from the bank? Wynne grabbed at the doors, and more in frustration than knowing he would be able to open them, shook them, and landed a kick against them. He saw somebody look up at the noise that he had generated. He shook them again, the electronically sealed doors refusing to yield, hoping someone would admit him. Nobody came. Annoyed, he paced to the other side and grabbed those doors, shaking them also. He couldn't see anybody on that side at all. Wynne felt like leaving her, but he would have to return to his own vehicle across the city. Why on earth was she taking so long? He turned around and saw 2 faces peering at him through the glass section of the opposite doors. It was 2 of his former colleagues, Graham Surwitty and David Sullivan. They were watching him, carefully, with an alarmed look on their faces. Then Surwitty seemed to recognize him, and he heard him say, "That's Ian Wynne." Wynne waved to them, and Sullivan swiped the door so the pair entered the lobby. "Hello, Graham. Hello, David," said Wynne pleasantly, and shook their hands. "What's going on, Ian?" asked Surwitty. "Oh, I'm just waiting for Ashleigh." "Why were you breaking down the doors?" asked Sullivan. "Sorry, what? I wasn't. I just pulled at them in frustration that there seemed to be something going on with Ashleigh." "Well, the police have been called," said Surwitty. "Why?" "One of the staff thought you were damaging the doors." "Didn't they recognize me?" "Apparently not. You've lost some weight since you were here, and you've got facial hair, so they didn't know it was you," explained Sullivan. "Oh, I see. Well, it's a misunderstanding, that's all," replied Wynne. "Well, they're on their way," commented Surwitty. "Have you been drinking?" he asked. "Just a couple of glasses a few hours earlier. I'm driving. Why?" "I just thought you might be drunk. Ashleigh is," said Surwitty. No, I'm sober." Surwitty walked away, and Ashleigh appeared at the doors. She swiped her card, opening one of them as Surwitty, followed by Sullivan, went through the other door. "What's going on?" asked Ashleigh. "We'd better get going. The police are on their way for some reason," said Wynne. "What for?" "Someone seemed to think I was trying to break in." "That's ridiculous." "What have you been doing?" asked Wynne. "Oh, those clever bastards decided to have a go at me, didn't they? So I held my ground. They didn't like that at all," she explained. "Come on, we should go." I haven't finished giving them a piece of my mind yet, said Ashleigh. Her words were slightly slurred. Have you got your car keys? Yes, they're in the bag. I thought you said they were on your desk. Why would I leave them on my desk? Jesus, you said you'd left them on your desk and you needed to go back into the bank to collect them. No, I didn't, she said, frowning. Wynne started to speak, but saw the futility of it. He grabbed her handbag and found the car keys inside. He jabbed a button on the lift. Come on, we're going. Hopefully we can get out before the police arrive. They waited and got in the lift. Ashleigh started to paw at Wynne, but he moved away from her. What's wrong with you? She asked sulkily. Nothing, but we haven't got time for that now. Oh, come on. I want to do it in the lift, she smiled, and made towards Wynne again. He grabbed her hand and hugged her to him, and she seemed content to lean into him until they reached the ground floor. The door opened, and they were confronted by 8 police officers stood in the atrium. They seemed to be looking around for somebody to talk to. Wynne stepped out of the lift. I think you're looking for us, he said politely. A sergeant walked over just as the doors on the adjacent lift opened and out stepped Surwitty. Wynne halted. I will tell them what's going on, said Ashleigh loudly. I think you'd best go and sit down, suggested Wynne, and he steered her to a seat. When he turned, he saw Surwitty in conversation with the sergeant, but couldn't tell what was being said. They spoke for a few minutes, and then the sergeant walked over to him. Would you mind telling me what's been happening here, sir? Certainly, officer. I used to work here, and Ashleigh still does. She came in to collect her car keys so I could drive her home. She's had a few glasses of wine, you see. Anyway, whilst I was waiting, she seemed to be having an argument or discussion with Graham and some others. She looked like she was upset, and I wanted to go and help her. I tried to open the doors, forgetting that they're on a swipe card system, so I made a noise when I pulled them. Out of frustration, I did give the door a bit of a kick and pulled them again, but that's all. It seems there's been a bit of a misunderstanding. I apologise for that, but there's no damage done, nor did I intend to cause any damage. The sergeant nodded and looked Wynne over. Fair enough. They realise now what has happened. It seems they thought that you were somebody else. Oh, really? Yes, said the sergeant. One of the staff thought you were Miss Havenia's husband, or I understand now her ex-husband. Apparently you and he look similar. Well, I don't know about that, but I suppose from a distance we might, conceded Wynne. Apparently he has turned up here on a few occasions and has been shouting the odds. Ah, well, I can see and appreciate then why they thought I might be looking to cause trouble if I was him. Exactly, sir. Seems a case of mistaken identity. Indeed it does. We're happy that there's no need for us to remain here, so if you're on your way home, do carry on, said the sergeant. Yes, thank you, Sergeant. Sorry to have caused a problem. Wynne walked away and took Ashleigh by the arm. He led her out into the courtyard and across towards the tunnel, which led under the hotel. What did they say? She asked. Well, it seems Peter's been turning up causing trouble, and someone thought I was him, so they called the police. My God, has he? Wynne halted and turned to Ashleigh. Wait, didn't you know that he's been turning up at your bank where you work? She shook her head. He carried on walking, and she trotted to catch up with him. They were halfway down the tunnel when she dropped to the ground and let out a wail. Wynne turned around. She was lying on the floor, hands striking the cold flagstones, letting out cries and wails. Ashleigh, come on, get up, urged Wynne, taking her by the arm. It's all too much, she cried. Wynne began hauling her to her feet when a man appeared at the top of the tunnel. He stood hesitant. Is everything all right? Called the man. Yes, thank you, it's okay, answered Wynne. He pulled at Ashleigh again. She got to her feet but continued to cry. The stranger stood watching as Wynne put his arm about her and led her down the ramp. Everything is going wrong. Why are they doing this to me? She sobbed as they were hit by the wind once again. They're just arseholes, you know that. No wonder so many people left the bank, replied Wynne. I hate them. What did they say to you? Oh, I can't remember. They just started having a go at me, said Ashleigh. You can't remember? It was just a moment ago, said Wynne. Oh, I think I must have just blotted it out. It's just too much for me to deal with at the moment, replied Ashleigh, and she began to cry once again. Wynne led her across the road, concerned at the state that she was in. It certainly seemed to be coming at her from all sides, Peter's continued nastiness notwithstanding his vile rape of her, the stress of bringing up the children more or less alone, and now her colleagues launching attacks at her. She needed a break from it all. They reached the car and Wynne got behind the wheel. Ashleigh began fishing about in her bag as she started the engine. "What are you doing now?" he asked. She produced a BlackBerry. "I'm going to send them an email and tell them what I really think about what they've done to me," she seethed, her face twisted in malice and anger. "I don't think, given the state that you're in, that that's a wise thing to do at all." "They can get fucked," she shouted. "How dare they criticise me and gang upon me like that?" "To me, it looks like you were giving as good as you got," commented Wynne. "Oh yes, I told them, but that's nothing compared to what I'm going to send them now." Wynne plucked the device from her hands. "Leave it. You'll regret sending it when you're worked up like this." "But I have to tell them," she protested. "Leave it," said Wynne firmly. "Are you on their side?" "Don't be ridiculous. No, I'm not." "Then let me send the email. It's my phone." "No. I'm putting my foot down here. You and I have got some talking to do. Come on, have you seen the time? It's early. It's nearly 9 o'clock. Sarah will be wondering where on earth you have got to. Leave the email. Let's get you home. And you've got some questions that I want answering." "If you say so. I'm not letting them get away with this, though. Not in your life." "I don't want to be talking about work, Ashleigh. I want to be talking about you. Something needs explaining here." Ashleigh fell silent and stared out of the window, as Wynne, his face set in a determined look, moved the car forward as they drove to the exit of the car park.